Hi, good afternoon. I'm Melissa Slaymaker, the director of the Talent Hub at Women in Tech. I'm here today to talk to you about how to ace your job interviews. I'm really excited to help our community to progress through their careers. And obviously, everyone at some point in their career will have to go through that interview process. So I'm here today to share you some tips, share with you some tips, some do's and don'ts, and to take you through how to prepare and how to ace a job interview, what to do before, what to do during, and what to do after. So I will be presenting just a few slides with you today, just to talk to you about Women in Tech Talent Hub. The Talent Hub can be found if you go to talent.women-in-tech.org. It is a talent job board for women in STEM and women in technology, and we really aim to help women get more opportunities in STEM through giving them access to jobs, and also companies that want to hire diverse talent know where to come. So Women in Tech, why do we exist? What is it all about? Women in Tech is a non-for-profit organization. We are currently in 6 continents in over 30 countries and growing. And we exist because there's still a gender gap in STEM, and we want to take action and work towards closing that gender gap. And today I'm here to help you obviously talk through this workshop around interviews. If you want to find out more about Women in Tech, you can go to our website. It's at women-in-tech.org. And Women in Tech is also part of the Edison Alliance, which is a group of companies all dedicated towards solving the problem of digital inclusion. And we want to get to the figure of 1 billion by 2025. And so definitely look us up if you want to become a member, if you want to find out more about opportunities, and just really to help you with your career in STEM. So the Talent Hub, as I mentioned, is there for 2 parts. One is to help candidates with their job hunt in the tech career world. We're a global organization, so there's a lot of international jobs on our Talent Hub, especially roles that are remotely available or hybrid. And for companies, if you're looking for diverse talent, you want to hire more women and more diversity into your teams, then please come to us and let's see how we can help you find that talent. So let's get through to the workshop today. The previous workshop I did was on CV writing. You can find that on our YouTube channel. And there's a follow-on from that. So you've now written your CV and you've had a successful job application. So good news, you've now been invited to an interview. But how do you ace that interview and how do you get the best possible results? So today I'll be taking you through, as I mentioned, what to do before, what to do during, and what to do after the interview to help you really put you on the best possible track forward going forwards. So the 3 R's of what to do before: research, review, and rehearse. So research. I always say to people, research the company that you're going to. There's a lot of information these days you can find online. Most companies have got a website. They'll have on their website their vision, mission, and values. Definitely look at those because you will probably be asked at interview, have you looked at our values? What do you think about that? How do you relate to us as a company? So definitely make sure that you look at the company mission statement. And also if that's something that you're interested in and if you agree with that mission statement, because you want to make sure that the company you're working at has got the right culture fit for you as well. Look at if you are able to get any annual reports. It's always a good way to get information about a company. And any news articles on Google. So really research the company, make sure that you can create some interesting questions to discuss with them during the interview is always a good idea. Research the job description. So really fine comb, go through the job description with, I normally use a highlighter, and I'll look at words that get repeated throughout that job description. Normally it gives you an indication of buzzwords that they like to use. So using the similar buzzwords will give you the indication that you really are almost already working there and part of the team. So make sure that you understand all the skills that are on the job description, as well as the qualifications. Now, you don't have to have 100% of everything on the job description. You're there to learn and you're there to progress yourself, right? So highlight anything that you might be lacking or that you can research before the interview to show that, okay, I might not have experience in this part of the job description, but I have seen that I can take a course on this, or I can upskill in this way, or do some more research. It always shows that you can then are really, really keen to learn and to contribute to that opportunity. So other than the job description, you also normally know who's interviewing you. So look at the person's, maybe have a look at their LinkedIn profile, if they've got a social media account, and see if they have any particular interest potentially that you can discuss, something that could break the ice of the interview, something that you have in common. And it really is a helpful tool to see that you've done your homework. You might know someone, or you might have gone to the same school, you never know. So do the research. That's definitely important. In terms of just before on the research, but make sure that you know also exactly what to expect at the interview stage. Is it going to be a virtual interview? Is it going to be at their office, at a coffee shop? Is it going to be an informal interview, a technical test? Are they going to go through any specific psychometrics? Really find out as much as you can about the format of the interview so that you can best prepare. And also, in terms of any challenges that there might be, if there's something that you may have come up through the research of the company, make sure that you prepare those questions for them. And also know why the role is available. I always say to people, it will tell you a bit about the role. Is the company growing? Is it a new role being created? Or is the role there because someone left? Or did they leave because they got promoted within the company? So it all gives you a good indication of things that you might need to be aware of the company before you start. And again, it also doesn't, interviews sometimes might be in the current company where you're working, you're interviewing for promotion, but still do as much research as possible. Don't think because, I work in the company already, that I don't need to do too much research. You'd be surprised that, you need to kind of research those job descriptions. Everything is still valid for people in their current companies looking to promote themselves as well. The second R is review. This is self-reflection and reviewing your CV. So you've created your CV, but review that CV. Make sure that you understand and remember which dates were where so that you don't get flustered during the interview and sound like you're making things up. So make sure you know the dates. Make sure that you also know your numbers. So if you're in a sales role, for instance, make sure that you know what your targets were, what did you achieve against your targets. If you're a manager or working in senior role, know what your P&L is, understand, what the numbers of your team, and any kind of achievements where you need to be specific around numbers. Definitely be clear and prepare and self-review. Most of you also know around, hopefully, what a SWOT analysis is. SWOT is SWOT, stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is your chance to do a little bit of a SWOT analysis on yourself. Find out from comparing your CV to the job descriptions prior to the interview. Okay, so what are your strengths? Where have I got a lot of experience and value that I can add? Or where are the threats potentially of things that I might not have known or have learned, or qualifications I don't have yet? Or potentially, who am I up against? If you have that information, what are the threats? What are the opportunities in the job that it could be interest to me? And really work out strengths and weaknesses. So strengths and weaknesses are things that always come up in any interview in some way, shape, or form. So really, before an interview, self-analyze and think about, what is it that actually I am good at? What do I enjoy doing? And those would normally be around your strengths. Ask your peers if you're not sure. Ask your friends, say, look, what do you think are my strengths? What should I say in an interview if someone asks me this question? And the same goes for weaknesses. If someone says to you, well, I think you could probably develop your listening skills, or you could probably develop your, attention to detail. Don't take it as criticisms, but take it as something that you can work towards to get better. Because if you're in an interview and someone says to you, what are your weaknesses? And you don't have any, it shows that you actually don't reflect, or you don't have an understanding of, what are your weaknesses, and you don't have a plan to actually do anything about them. So definitely ask people around you to maybe give you some insights into yourself, or do some self-reflection before an interview so that you have those strengths and weaknesses ready. And very importantly, every interview normally has somewhere in the interview some sort of competency-based questions where they'll say to you, so how do you work in a team? Or tell me about a situation where you maybe were under pressure and how did you handle it? So those are called competency-based questions. And those really need to be answered by using specific examples of what you've done in your previous roles or in your career, in your life. So think of 3 things in your career where you did something really well. Maybe somewhere where you achieved something really well, you've had great customer feedback, you've gone over and beyond, you've had very good feedback from a line management review that you recently did, somewhere where you think, okay, great, I can use that as an example, but at least have 3 ready to be kind of drawn on in your thoughts when you get asked those questions. So before the interview, review yourself, review your strengths, your weaknesses, do a bit of a SWOT analysis, make sure that you remember what your CV says, and also make sure that you have 3 exact examples of things that you can draw on during the interview. And the final R is rehearse. So it might sound funny, but do practice in front of a mirror, speak to a friend, do a bit of a rebuttal or like a little bit of a mock interview. There are actually some sites on the website. If anyone's interested, I can send you some resources where they do mock interviews with you. At Women in Tech, we also do mock interviews with our students that go through our This Is Me program. So it's really a great opportunity for you to kind of practice and do a bit of a dry run before the real event. So if you can be in an opportunity where you can do those mock interviews, it just takes the pressure off a little bit, knowing that you've run through it and you can get some feedback from those mock interviews as well. So a few tips for interviews. So in terms of tips, first of all, you want to be your best self. You want to stand out from the crowd. You want to put your best foot forward. So please get plenty of sleep. Make sure that the night before you don't worry too much. You try and not, put it off and prepare as much as you can the days before or however much time you have. But try and get plenty of sleep. And print any documents that you think you might need. So if you think you might need your CV, something to refer to when you're in your interview, or if you want to print off any qualifications or anything that you think might help you in the interview. I've never heard of anyone saying that you're not allowed to take any documents in the interview. So if you feel that that would make you feel a little bit more confident, then do that. Give yourself plenty of time as well. So whether it's a face-to-face interview or a virtual interview, you really need to give yourself enough time. In a face-to-face scenario, I always say to potential candidates, go and have a drive by the office. Make sure that you know that there's parking, if it's possible. Make sure that you know exactly the rush hour schedules. If you're going by train, give yourself some extra time to make sure that there's no delays. And rather make it maybe a half an hour, 15 minutes earlier than you would have arrived, because it just gives you time to kind of relax and breathe and get those nerves off a little bit. So don't put yourself under pressure by being late. Doesn't look good. So plenty of time for the interview so that there's no issue of you being late. Dress for success is the next one. First impressions count. So make sure that you understand, again, the company culture of where you're going to be interviewing. If you're going to a formal corporate bank or anything like that, then obviously you'd want to wear a nice suit. I'm not sure if they wear ties in all interviews, but find out from a recruiter or from a company, look, do I need to wear a tie or suit? Or if you're going for an interview at a startup, obviously, I don't think wear a suit, that would not be good, because they, again, it fits into their culture. So make sure that you dress appropriately, but I'll always recommend you to dress a little bit more formal than you would in every day, just to have that really good first impression. Maybe just a jacket over that, over a nice blouse, or and obviously some nice trousers if you're going for a face-to-face interview. Virtual interviews, I guess you can choose what you wear, as long as you look good, waist up, it's all good. So elevator pitches. Elevator pitches is something that I always stress on and focus on when I prepare people for interview. An elevator pitch is pretty much the first 2 minutes of your introduction. So when you imagine you're in an elevator or a lift, and you have to really impress someone for those first 2 minutes before you get to the floor where you need to get off. So in those 2 minutes, you need to give your best first impression, but it needs to cover who you are, what your qualifications are, what your skills are, what are your passions, and how you can add value to the organization, all very quickly into less than 2 minutes. So your elevator pitch needs to be practiced, and it needs to be almost a automated sentence that you say to yourself, so that when you are on your most nervous state of mind and your palms are sweating and you're thinking, oh gosh, I can't even remember what day of the week it is. What's my name again? I'm sure you've all been in those situations, but don't fret. If you've practiced your elevator pitch, it comes naturally. It just flows because you already have practiced it so many times. So make sure that you actually practice your elevator pitch, your introduction, so that at least those first 2 minutes you can wow them, and then by that time your nerves have settled, and then you can continue with the interview and have the best outcome. Again, like I mentioned, know your strengths, but back them up with practical evidence. So if you're saying, oh, I'm a great team player as a strength, then have a practical example of where you've shown how you contributed to a team, and maybe you've, someone was off ill and you put in extra, you took up the workload because you really needed to complete that task, or whatever it may be. But have evidence and practical examples to show how your strengths have benefited you in the past. And of course, I mentioned, know your weaknesses. This will come up somewhere or another, but make sure that if you have a weakness, it's not detrimental to the job you're in. So if you're going to be working in a very detail-orientated environment and your weakness is, oh, I have no attention to detail, then that's probably not a good thing to say at an interview, and also might not be an enjoyable job for you. So, but make sure that your weaknesses are weaknesses that you can show that you're aware of them, number one, and number two, that you are working towards improving and developing yourself to minimize those weaknesses. And remember that it's not bragging if it's fact. An interview is really your chance to brag a little bit, to boast a little bit about your accomplishments, to know, so people won't know what your achievements are if you don't tell them. So this is really your opportunity to brag. So that was all before the interview. So lots of things to do before the interview, but now you are at the interview. What do you do? So here are a few tips I'd like to just share with you. Again, I'm making these slides all available for you so you can actually have these tools to help you with your next interview. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want a copy of these slides, or they'll be on our YouTube channel. So a few tips for during an interview. First of all, confidence. Yes, show confidence. Even if you are not confident, fake it. Fake it till you make it. Just for that interview, just be smiling, be friendly, be approachable. Really be aware of your body language. Obviously, body language is your posture, it's your eye contact. Give them a firm handshake. This is really, really crucial. It's those first few minutes that maybe actually makes an interviewer decide whether you are going to be hired or not. So it actually, research has shown that it's within the first 2 to 5 minutes that the interviewer decides, yes, I'm going to hire you, or no. So really make sure that those first few minutes you're confident, you've got a firm handshake, you have good energy, good enthusiasm, and positivity. Build a rapport. And because when you want to, interviewers are people. So if you want to go into an interview, make sure that you start a conversation, friendly conversation. It could be about the weather. It could be about something you research on LinkedIn. Oh, my kid also goes to this school. I saw that something like that. Just an icebreaker to put both of you at ease, and listen clearly to the questions that are being asked. I think sometimes you're preempting what they're going to say, but really make sure that you listen and that you also just enjoy the process. Normally, the first question, you don't even realize it's a question, because they say, oh, tell me a bit about yourself. That's the interview started. So when they say, tell me a bit about yourself, that's when your brain should kick in, elevator pitch. So don't start thinking about, trying to create this difficult answer or anything. Just go, right, I've practiced this. I'm going to do my elevator pitch here and do it with confidence. Again, remember those first few minutes are crucial. I don't know if you've heard about the STAR methodology, but we always say answer a question using STAR methodology. The STAR methodology, STAR, is short for situation, task, action, and result. So when they ask you any question in an interview, any question could be, tell me, what are you most proud of? Or tell me somewhere where you failed. What you need to remember is always use a situation and tell them a story. It's a little bit, take them on a journey of how you've overcome a situation, what was the action that you needed to take to turn this problem around, and what was the result. For each question, do that. It gives you the opportunity to be concise and to answer a question where they can form a picture around your skills and your experience, and therefore help you to really ace the interview. So remember that: situation, task, action, and results. Normally, a last question is, why should we hire you? Be ready for that, and be ready with questions. The way I always like to preempt that question is, remember those strengths that you had written down at the beginning of preparing for the interview. Go back to the strengths. Why should we hire you? Oh, my strengths was A, B, C, and D. But don't just give one strength. Give at least 3. So say to them, well, my one strength was, I have great customer service experience and I'm always getting good results. But give them at least 3. So it just gives you an idea of coming back to that question, and try to have fun. So if you're having fun, they will also be more relaxed, and the whole process will be much more of a pleasant experience. And remember that you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. You have to work with this company or people or team. So you need to also decide, are they the people or company or team that you want to work for? Great. So now the interview's ended. After the interview, or has it? No. After the interview, you normally think, okay, great. So they've asked their questions, interview's over, bye-bye, we're going to go. No, you always have to be prepared for questions. So if you're at the end of the interview, get to the end of the interview and they ask, so do you have any questions? Don't just say, oh no, you've answered all my questions, great, I'm going to go now, because then that means absolute failure. So do not do that. Always remember, you have to ask questions. There are 4 sort of things for the 4 C's of question asking at the end of the interview. One is connect, one is culture, one is challenges, and one is close. So the 4 questions is connect. So connect to the interviewer. So ask them, so, why do you enjoy working here? Or when did you start working in this company? Like, get their personal feel. What have you enjoyed about being here 5 years? And get an understanding, because this is where you get to interview the company. And you get to understand about, what environment it is to kind of maybe work there. That's the next one, is culture. Questions around culture is, why did the previous person leave the role? It's a valid question to ask. Ask them, are we growing? There's more people, or there's promotion opportunity, or actually no, if there was an issue and then something you need to be aware of. And also just ask things like, what is it like to work here day to day? So what do I expect, and what will be my challenges, do you think, for working here? Actually, that's the next one. But in terms of the cultures, how do you reward your top achievers? So if you ask the question, how do you reward your top achievers? What behavior is achieved. So if you say, oh, okay, someone reaches a certain task or a certain level in their career, then we take them on holiday to Bahamas or whatever. You go, great, okay, so I need to do this to get to those promotional things. So that's a good question to know if this is the kind of company that you want to work for. Challenges, ask them. I read in my research that the company lost so many people over the last 6 months. You tell us, well, what would be the challenges, and what do you think will be my biggest challenge in this role over the next 3 to 6 months? These kind of questions really will tell you again if you want to work for the company. And the final one is close. Find out from them, this is probably the most important bit of the interview in my eyes, because you need to know, is it going to be a yes or a no for both sides? And there's some ways of finding, kind of digging for information. And I've written a few questions here, and one of them would be like, are there any skills or any experiences that I might be lacking that would make me not to be the perfect person for this role? What is the next step in the process? And most importantly, what is the timeline? Because you need to know when to follow up and when is it appropriate to ask for feedback. And the last one is, how do I compare to some of the other candidates? Is there anything that I haven't answered that you want to know from me? So it gives you the opportunity to maybe, if they had any doubt and they said, well, I think you're a good candidate, but I'm concerned about the commute, or something like that. Then you can say to them, oh, actually, no, but we actually are planning on moving, so the commute's not an issue, or whatever it may be. You can actually, any concerns at the interview stage, you can also iron out and make sure that it doesn't stand in your way of getting that job. Some more points for after the interview is, if you are interested and if you get to the end of the interview stage and you do feel that there's a good fit for yourself to work at the company, and you think that I can really see myself working here, then express an interest in the role. Don't leave without telling them, wow, I'm really interested in this position. I can see myself adding value to your organization, and I really am excited to potentially be working as part of your team. All really positive things to say when you're very interested. So express interest and let them know that you're interested. And if you have any other job interviews or offers lined up that might affect your availability, tell them. It might actually increase the speed of the process. And understand again the timeline to be when it's appropriate to follow up with feedback. I've had some people in my experience where they sort of feedback every day after the interview, what's the feedback, but actually there was a process that needed to be sort of gone through, and they actually, the employer was a little bit put off because the person was a bit pushy. So there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. So find out what is the timeline and when can I follow up, and that's no problem. And one quote I want to leave you with from Maya Angelou is, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that's so important in an interview scenario. Sometimes you might say the wrong thing or waffle, but if you are giving off a positive energy vibe, a right culture fit for the company, and the interviewers will remember how you made them feel more than what you've said. So I definitely hope that this sort of strikes a chord with you as it does with me. Then almost at the end, some few tips of what not to do. I think it's important to mention as well. First of all is do not be late, whether it's virtual or in person. Do not be late. That's why I said give yourself extra time. If you have to do a little drive by the location and parking check, and if you or whatever, set your own alarm a few minutes faster so that you're not late, but do not be late, because that's already it starts off on a negative footing. So I think that's always good advice. Do not forget to prepare intelligent questions. This is, again, I've given you a few examples, but through your research, make sure that you have some intelligent questions to ask at the end of the interview. Do not only speak to one person in panel interviews. So even if it's a virtual interview or physical, doesn't matter. If you have more than one interviewer, thank you and address each interviewer, because you do not really know who's the decision maker. You might be surprised. It might not be the person asking all the questions. So acknowledge everyone in the room. Do not, and this is a never, 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 do not speak negatively about your previous employer. Even if you have got all the reason to be negative about your previous employer, people do not like complaining or complainers. So they don't want to hear about how badly you were treated. They want to know how you're going to add value to their business. So don't ever speak negatively about your previous employers. The world is small and people do talk. So always keep your side clean and make sure that you have a positive attitude no matter what. Do not discuss money at first. Wait for the appropriate time. When I say money, do not speak about salary at an interview until they ask you. And even then, do not give them numbers unless you can say to them what you're currently earning, but let them make an offer. I always say to people, you'll shoot yourself in the foot, because they might be thinking of offering you 5 or 10K more than what you would accept. And if you say, well, I'm happy with this, then you won't get to know what they were hoping to offer you. So never get the numbers first, but also don't ask it, oh, so what's this role paying? Because it shows that you're only in it for the money, and that's not seen as a positive characteristic normally when hiring. Do not waffle. Waffle is a term I learned in England. It's a long drawn out answers. Keep answers short and punchy. So do not go off on a tangent. Yes, tell your story, do STAR analogy and do STAR methodology, and do express yourself through telling your story through that process, but keep it short and sweet. Do not leave without thanking them for their time, and always be polite. How easy is that to remember? But be polite no matter what. Even if you think, actually, I'm not going to take this job, they might be thinking of you for jobs in the future within the company. So always be polite. And lastly, just wanted to say good luck to everyone that's doing the interviews. So as this is live, I will be looking at some of the questions that came through from the live. There's a few people looking for jobs. If you are looking for jobs, try and go on the Talent Hub. I did give the link out previously. It's talent.womenintech.org. But I see that there were some people from all over the world joining in. And what else? Is there any questions? If not, I had a really great time explaining to you how to ace your interviews. If you have any questions, you want to reach out to me directly, I'm on LinkedIn. So please join me and or send me some DMs if you want some help on how to ace your interview. So thank you so much.